We only make up 13% of the population, but we carry the greatest disease burden. We carry the greatest mortality. And so the community could potentially have the greatest benefit. And I think when you tell a person that this treatment, this trial, this drug, this opportunity really gives us all a chance to live a better life, that is a real benefit. And there's some hope in the face of a really terrible disease. Patients need to know that there are safeguards in place to prevent the abuses that they may have heard of in the past associated with clinical trials. Especially in the Black community, there are some stigmas, there's some myths, there's some truth to how the medical community treated Black and Brown patients in many, many years past, and even up until the 70s. There were some medical abuses that happened that really made it unfortunate and that disenfranchised people of their rights and made us have a negative view of clinical trials. I think the Black community has the most to benefit from clinical trials because we historically have been the most excluded from these trials. There are benefits, I think, to restoring and rebuilding trust with the healthcare community that patients may feel excluded from. And there are opportunities for us to partner with healthcare providers and with researchers to make sure that we're represented in both the trials and in the benefit as a result of those trials.
The biggest one, I think, is that you have access to something that other people don't have access to. So if you want a VIP pass, clinical trials are that VIP pass for your cancer, the cutting edge therapy. And these days, for a clinical trial to come to fruition, it has gone through multiple safeguards, through the FDA, through the local review boards, through the institution itself, to ensure its safety and usually its efficacy for patients to even see it, depending on the phase of the clinical trial. And so one benefit is that you get the newest drug and the newest drug for your cancer.
I was initially diagnosed with breast cancer following a mammogram in December of 2016, and then it was identified as stage 1 triple negative breast cancer. I decided to participate in the clinical trial primarily of my own accord. I had a friend who early on said, make sure you're open to clinical trials, basically throw everything at this that you can. And I did spend some time doing research and looking into options and understanding how important it was to basically try to assure that it doesn't recur.
I found a lump on self-breast exam 2 years prior to my cancer diagnosis. I brought it to the attention of my primary care doctor. She sent me for an ultrasound, and the ultrasound was concerning enough to warrant an immediate biopsy. Eventually, I was found by breast MRI to have a large mass in my right breast, which was biopsied and determined to be breast cancer. When my doctor brought up clinical trials, I was actually really happy that she did. I know how I, as a patient, could benefit from participation in a clinical trial. I was very aware of the possibility of having metastasis, and if anything was out there that could stave that off or delay it, I was interested in it.
You get a lot of attention, a lot of positive attention, that you have not only the nurse that you've worked with and the provider that you've worked with, but a research nurse that is also caring for you, making sure that the clinical trial is safe, that you're not experiencing any unusual or undue side effects, and hopefully very few side effects at all.
My clinical trials team was very accommodating. They would do things like schedule my clinical trial visits in concert with my medical oncology appointments or with other studies like blood work or things that I had to do at the hospital. So typically, I was already there. They always helped me make my appointments, which was very necessary at a time where I was juggling multiple visits with multiple subspecialists, with surgeons, my primary doctor, my physical therapy team, my medical oncologist, chemo chair visits. Like there was so much going on, and they made it really easy to participate. So I found them to be really accommodating. I think I brought my daughter to at least one or two of my clinical trial appointments because I just needed to do that. And it wasn't a problem. No one made a fuss about it. And they let me know that it was okay.
I had a wonderful experience in my clinical trial. Normally, follow-up after having treatment, you would see the oncology-related team every 6 months. For the clinical trial I was on, I had to get evaluated monthly to make sure my blood work and chemistries were all in order. So I had an opportunity to interact with them each month. They were so receptive to any questions I had. One time, I wasn't sure, I lost a pill and I felt bad about opening a new pack, and they responded like right away. That may not be everyone's experience, but both my team was very receptive, and for the type of trial I had monthly evaluations that I wouldn't have had normally. So I found that to be a good experience, and I felt better about my post-treatment evaluation, knowing that I was getting that additional time and evaluation with the clinical team.
There are benefits to the individual patient for participating in clinical trials. The clinical trials sometimes can give patients the benefit of drugs that are not yet FDA approved for their condition, but that have been shown to work in preclinical trials. It can give patients access to drugs that we know that are approved, but not for their stage of disease. And so now we're able to offer more targeted therapies, but we were only able to do so through participation in clinical trials, and it helps us to get those drugs approved for everybody. It helps tumors to shrink faster. It can help overall survival. And so there are benefits to not only the future patients and not only that patient's potential loved ones or their community, but to that patient directly.
For triple-negative breast cancer, often if you get past the 3-year mark, they say things look pretty good. Well, in fact, in the surveillance trial I participated in, it was at the 3-year mark where the suspicious cells were found. So for me, I felt that it was definitely in my best interest that I had participated and had a chance to kind of head things off. For the treatment trial, the results are just being analyzed now, but in their preliminary overview, the outcomes were very good on all of the treatment arms. And that's not going to happen in all trials, but I was fortunate that in this trial, they have found so far, I think 90% of the participants had a reduction or removal of all of the cells by the time they finished treatment. So that's a stellar outcome, and I have the confidence that my result was within the 90% of the people that had a reduction or elimination in the number of cells found. That's a good outcome.
The other thing is that you benefit from it, but also the cancer community benefits from it. So other people with the same cancer that you have, by being involved in the clinical trial, you're actually pushing the needle forward. And that will be of benefit for months, years, decades to come, that you were part of the process that helped cure a disease is no greater honor, I think, than to be able to participate in that.
If I can get help for me in the clinical trial to keep from having a recurrence or metastases, that's good. But if people can learn about triple negative breast cancer, stage 1 breast cancer progression, how triple negative presents in Black or African Americans compared to other people, I'm willing to participate in that.
So cancer clinical trial participation doesn't just benefit me, and it doesn't just benefit the people who are in the trial. It will benefit future generations in terms of figuring out what is favorable treatment, who tolerates a treatment versus who does not, who's going to have a better outcome, what's a better drug for a Black woman or Afro-Caribbean woman or African-American woman versus our white counterparts. Are the differences in our outcomes solely based on how we respond to treatment or not? These are questions we haven't yet been able to fully answer and fully understand, but the more we participate in clinical trials, the more we'll be able to figure that out, and the more that can benefit our sisters, our cousins, our nieces, our aunts, all of the generations behind us and all of the generations moving forward. So it's imperative that we participate in clinical trials.